Hello guys, welcome to my show. My guest today is an amazing artist, Amanda Greive. First time I saw Amanda's artwork, I was stunned to feel raw emotion she projects in her paintings. The struggle that I saw in her artwork reminded me of my own struggles. Being a woman and trying to meet societal expectations. Her highly creative compositions make me stare and dissect every artwork, trying to understand what the artist wanted to say with her paintings. The artist participated in a number of high-profile shows and festivals, exhibiting her work in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. I'm honored to have this artist on my show. Please welcome Amanda Greive. Well, first of all, welcome to my show. I'm happy to see you. My first question is about your previous job, previous career, and I'd like to hear more about your experience switching the careers and how is being an artist different from your previous job, and what are the similarities? Why did you become an artist?
Well, I should probably preface this whole conversation with the fact that I originally didn't go to school for art. I went for genetics and then epidemiology. So I have my master's degree in epidemiology. And I worked for a while as an epidemiologist with a nonprofit called the Autism Project. And then, but I also ended up working as a legal secretary and a legal researcher. So for a very long time, I spent most of my working hours in a legal library, looking over court opinions and checking the references and the citations and stuff for those. So
this is so different. It's like the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only parallels between those careers is the research element. As far as like, the legal aspect, I love to research, and it's fun to research for paintings and to gain inspiration from, books that I'm reading or songs that I'm listening to. As far as like the scientific element, like just learning how the body works and knowing what is underneath the skin and how that works really, I think, informs your ability to draw and paint the figure. So, I mean, you can even like think of it in terms of like, in art history, you heard about like artists working with cadavers and trying to figure out like what the muscle structure was and the bone structure. And so,
so it actually explains why you're so good at figure painting, because you have this knowledge of human anatomy and how it works.
I think it definitely helps. It at least in my case, it definitely helps.
How did you make the decision? What was the turning point?
I worked as a legal researcher. I worked in our appellate court here in Illinois. And so my boss was wonderful and gave me the flexibility to take courses at the local community college during work hours. I just would have to make up the time. And so I ended up taking a drawing course and just fell in love with it. I mean, it just kind of snowballed from there. And so I was able to take more courses through the community college and then through our local University of Illinois, and eventually get my bachelor's in visual arts. I say that it just was something that I decided to do, but I also, I grew up in a family of artists and musicians. It's just that it was not anything that really interested me whenever I was younger. And so I was around it. I guess you just take advantage of the fact that, or you take for granted the fact that that you're submersed in it always. You think that it's a normal part of life, and you don't necessarily take part in it, but it's just always there.
What did your parents do?
My mom was an artist.
Okay, like a painter?
She was a jack of all. She is a jack of all trades. She's a painter. She did sculpture, and I have 4 sisters, so she stayed at home with
Wow,
us.
4 sisters. Wow, that's a big
Yeah,
family.
yeah. And then my dad is a farmer, so we
Oh,
grew up out in the country, just
I
kind
see.
of feral children.
Wow. See, I also began studying art in my early 20s, and I already had I had a business degree, and it kind of didn't work for me. And I began taking classes at the community college as well. And
Oh
that's,
wow! So we kind of have
yeah,
that in
yeah,
common.
it's
That's
very
pretty cool.
similar. Yeah. And then I kind of got carried on, and I began working on my bachelor's degree. But the story is almost the same. But I didn't
Wild.
spend, I didn't really work, after getting my business degree. So that's
Mhm.
the difference. And you spent many years, I'm assuming, working.
I don't know, almost 10 years, I guess. And at the time too, I mean, I was working a full-time job, but then also I didn't have children at the time. So I was working probably 30 to 40 hours along with that in my studio.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like having 2 full-time jobs to the point until I could, you know, justify quitting my job and being able to do art full-time.
You are married and you have a child. Is it a girl?
Yeah, a little girl, she's
Yeah.
7.
7. So how does your family and your family responsibilities affect your painting?
They're pretty great. I mean, um, as a mother, it's hard sometimes to find that balance
Mm-hmm.
now. And I will say, I had my little girl later in life. So my husband and I had been married for quite a while, almost 15 years before we decided to have kids. And so it was a little hard to adjust to not having as much time or having to make better use of my time after I had my little girl. That said, I think it's made my painting better only because you're cutting out all the fluff. I'm painting quicker, but I'm not saying that I'm painting better, but I'm definitely painting quicker than I was before, and I don't think that um, any of the effect is lost. But also, after I had my daughter, it was kind of like the turning point in my art. It was the first painting that I did after I had her was kind of like a cornerstone piece,
Mm-hmm.
and having her kind of, before I was very much about equal rights and feminism, but then after I had her, it was heightened. This
Mm-hmm.
idea that you want to make the world a better place for her
Mm-hmm.
really was a stepping off point for the work that I do now. So
Okay.
I'm not sure that I would be in the same place if I hadn't had my daughter. Workday starts at 8 p.m. after they go to bed, and
Yeah.
paint until sometimes, it's not so bad now that she's older, but,
Mm-hmm.
whenever she was a child, it's like, okay, she'd take a nap and I'd paint for a couple of hours, and then she'd go to bed at 8 and I'd paint from 8 to midnight. So it's like you're working on, as you probably know, like very little sleep, just kind of like you almost become an automaton, just lather, rinse, repeat, try to get as much done as you can.
Do you plan on using her as a model at some point?
Yeah, I've taken a few photos of her, mostly just for, I do flower face paintings. So, her face will be completely covered. I go back and forth because I do like, I'm a fairly private person. So I do like to not thrust her into,
Mhm.
any sort of spotlight, just her, visage.
I'm assuming that your models could be your sisters.
Oh yeah, without a
Yeah.
doubt. Like
Yeah.
they have been so kind to
So they are your sisters. Is that right?
they're my sisters and my friends. Most of them now, my sisters, for the most part, live in other states. They live in, Colorado and
Mhm.
Wisconsin, all over the place. But originally, yes, they were the ones that I used the most, and now I've got some friends and acquaintances that have really just allowed me to communicate my vision and trust me with their images to kind of do with what I want. So I really am very lucky.
So do you have a preconceived idea before the photo shoot, or you let them do whatever they want and then you collage the elements together?
It depends. A lot of times my models and I will have conversations about like what their ideas of being a woman, or just have conversations. Pre-COVID, we'd get together at coffee shops and talk. I would communicate like the idea that I'm kind of thinking. They give me their input. So I guess it's kind of like, it's very much reliant on our relationship and the conversations we have. But at the end of the day, I still maintain creative control, but I do always appreciate the suggestions or the stories that they have that inform the piece also. Because, while I try to keep it very general, because I want it to be something that all people relate to, I think it's nice to have that intimacy or that sort of quality that gives it a singularity also, that isn't just generalized, but is maybe singular to that woman's experience.
It's interesting that you actually let them participate in your creative process.
Well, I mean, it's not so much that they're like, you should put this here or you should put that there. It's more so like
a discussion.
Yeah, it's a discussion, and it's always my main goal that they feel comfortable with what I have them, how I position them, or what I have them wear, or what's going to be on their face. From my perspective, you can tell a difference between a model that doesn't trust you and one that does. In the finished product, you can see that distrust to me, or that hesitance.
How do you see that?
If a model looks relaxed, right? If she looks relaxed in the image, then you can tell that she or he, that they trust who is photographing them or who is painting them. And so I can see in the images of the photographs that I've taken, which ones trust what I'm doing, or which ones feel comfortable enough for me to say, hey, can you tilt your head back, or can you position your legs this way, and that seem more comfortable than some seem more comfortable than others. It's kind of like whenever you have somebody sit for a portrait, and it makes it easier to paint whenever you get to know them, or not just painting strictly from a photo of somebody that you don't know, I guess is kind of where I'm coming from.
When I look at your art, and I see various forms of struggle in your beautiful paintings. Female faces get covered by hair, or they're turned away from the viewer, or their faces are covered with flowers. Figures also have very unusual poses. Some are thrown on the floor, others bend down or feel constricted by something. It almost feels like the flowers are alive, growing out of the female body, or maybe they're consuming the figure. I don't know. It's just the feeling. And it feels like the woman battles with her past, maybe with her memories. She probably struggles with her present situation. How do you come up with these ideas? Why do you depict women struggling?
Whenever somebody asks me this question, the first thing I say is that after I had my daughter, everyone around me said, so you're going to stop painting now that you have your daughter, right? And they would never say that. They would never even think to say that to my husband. It wasn't like, you're going to stop farming because you have a daughter now, or you have a child now. And so it wasn't lost on me, this thought that, society has a certain perspective of women, right? That, they have the children, and then they're the primary caretakers, and they lose themselves in this caretaking, and are sometimes supposed to be not only a perfect mother, but also a perfect worker. It was a very poignant moment for me. And it made me think about like what society thinks women should be and what they should do, as opposed to what we as women feel is right for us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I struggle with a lot, and I think a lot of other women do too. And so to me, there is this societal idea of femininity, what we should be, that we should be beautiful and well kept and successful in whatever we choose to do for work, and successful as parents. And there's idea that everything should be perfect when it's not. And so that was a lot of the reason why I started doing these paintings of women who looked like they were struggling, whether they were being bound by flowers or weighed down by flowers. Because to me, whenever I think of like the floral element, anything botanical, I think of femininity. You think of flowers being delicate and beautiful, but also they can be very resilient. They can be, I guess, considered weeds. I mean, so to me, or poisonous even, to me, that really tracks as far as what a female, what we consider feminine, right? To me, that there's a definite similarity between flowers and women. And so I liked the idea of this push and pull, this struggle with dealing with what a singular woman's idea of femininity is, as opposed to what society's idea of femininity is.
Mm-hmm. So did you come up with this idea a long time ago, or it kind of developed over the years?
It has developed over the years, but as I said, like after I had my daughter, that's whenever I really started thinking about it, because just the need, the desire to make the world a better place, or to make it more equal for her whenever as she grew up, when she got older, as opposed to what it is now, and what it was before, for my mother, my grandmother. That's what kind of was the jumping off point for these pieces.
Okay. Who influences your painting the most, or maybe what? Do you have any, or you kind of like, you don't look at anything?
I get a lot of influence from books that I read, and music and poems. I suppose I do from other visual artists too, but I always worry that I'm going to, one, get too much influence from other visual artists, and two, I feel like as an artist, my ego is very fragile. So it's like I see these wonderful pieces that the artists around me are making, and it's like, oh my God, I'm never going to be that good. So I get a lot of my influence from mostly books, and like I said, songs and poems, more so written word than anything.
What kind of books?
I read a lot of fiction. I feel like there's an empathy in that, and honestly, like an escapism and a magic that you don't necessarily find in other kinds of reading. And so I am one of those people that I love the idea of escapism, and I love just the idea of finding magic in things that that's where I get most of my influence from.
It's quite fascinating to learn, because I also try to put magic back into my painting. So
that's true. Yeah,
I'm not the only one, I guess. But
yeah, I know.
We do it very differently.
That's true. That's true. But your paintings are gorgeous, and I always enjoy seeing them on Instagram. And it's just. But I agree with you. We are very similar in that respect.
You kind of answered this question, but maybe you can explore it more. What do you want to accomplish as an artist? Like, what's your final destination? What's your goal?
I would love to be able to be successful, obviously. But I think at the end of the day, yeah, like monetary success is wonderful, but I would still be painting even if I didn't sell my work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what I would like to leave is just kind of a legacy for my daughter, but also, I would like to be able to make the world a better place. And that sounds really generic, I guess, but it's the truth. I mean, I want to leave my mark somehow, and I want it to be for the betterment of the people around me and society. And I want it to serve the purpose of opening minds and, working toward more like a more equal society. So I guess in my own little way, I that's what I'd like.
How will you put your paintings in front of large audiences? Because otherwise no one is gonna see it. If your end goal is to make the world a better place, it means that more people need to see your art. So do you have strategies in place to make it happen?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I guess the thing is, it's not so much like more people seeing my work as opposed to having a good influence on the people that do see my work and having that be a domino effect, right? I mean, if you, so like, there some paintings that I have, like whenever I've had gallery shows, you have conversations with people that see the work and maybe have a different idea of what it is, or don't know that, it's about feminism, or they don't know that it's about gay rights. And so it's having that conversation with people and hoping that they take away from it, or that it sparks an interest in them to look at things differently or see different perspectives, and opens their mind a little bit. So, I mean, it's not so much that I feel like I need to have everybody see my work. It's that the few that do see it, I want it to have a good influence on them. And then that to kind of snowball into, fingering out to the people that they know and the people that they know and that sort of thing. So
what's your definition of feminism? Since you mentioned it several times, I'd like to hear that.
For me, it's just equal rights and frankly, equal consideration. I know, like, the first painting that I did after my daughter was born was called The Feeling of Falling. And it happened after a conversation that I had with my sister, who at the time was working for the Department of Natural Resources in a job that was primarily for men. And she was doing as much, if not more, than the men that she was working with, but she was getting paid less, and she had to really fight to get paid an equal amount. And to me, that just seemed archaic. I couldn't quite understand that. And so for me, like, I know people say feminism and then they roll their eyes, but really for me, it's just a matter of equality. It's not saying that women are better. It's just saying that women are equal.
Okay. In what way do you feel not being equal? Like, you talked about your sister, but what about you? Like, where do you feel like you're restricted or you're less of a person?
I think even just like in parenthood, where the woman is considered the primary caretaker and is expected to not only be a wonderful parent, but also wonderful in whatever job they choose. And you hear all the time too, like in the art world, how men get paid so much more than women for their work.
Mhm.
And I guess I just don't know why that is. So I think it's just a constant, not a battle, but a recognition that, or knowledge that we have to work a little bit harder, or we've got to do a little bit more to be considered equal.
Okay. Who do you think establishes pricing? Why do you think that male artists get more for their work as
That's
opposed
a good question. I don't know. I mean, who knows? Is it because of who's collecting it? Is it because of who's representing them? I have no idea. I don't know.
When I paint, sometimes I have like negative thoughts like, oh, I wouldn't be able to do that, or I cannot do this. And then I kind of try to reverse myself and say, oh, yes, I can do this, and there is nothing wrong feeling this way, and I'll do better. A lot of artists go through negative self-talk. So how do you overcome that, if you have any?
Oh yeah. I think with every painting I start, it's like having this feeling of, am I going to be able to do it again? Have I lost my touch? And I think it's not so much ignoring those feelings of doubt or whatever, but just acknowledging them and pushing on in spite of them, because it is hard. It's hard too, because for most artists, you're really putting yourself out there. You're putting your thoughts and your feelings, and you want those to be validated.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's necessary just to be brave and just to have trust in your ideas and your motivations to create.
Sometimes when I paint, like I am involved in my process, and I get excited when it gets finished, and I, let's say, put it out on social media, and it doesn't really get traction, or I don't see the same excitement as I had painting it. So do you have similar experiences, or whenever you put it out, you get the response that you want? Or does it matter at all?
I don't know.
I figured out that a lot of times it doesn't really matter in the end. I kind of like the process of painting, and everything else kind of loses its importance after all. What is it for you?
I don't know. I always am a little, whenever you're putting a new piece out, you always get a little nervous about what the response will be.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I don't know that I worry about it too much, just because, it's done. I can't take it back. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like every piece is important. It's important to me. So I don't know. I don't know that I really think about it too much. I see social media as more of like a tool to just get my work out and to be able to get as many people as I can to see my work.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know that not everybody's going to like it, and it's not going to be everybody's favorite piece. And so, yeah, I just try not to let that bother me too much. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely pieces that have garnered more attention than others, and I just think that's normal.
Okay.
Just a normal part of it.
Okay. So where do you find support when you need it the most? A lot of times we can feel down, or something doesn't go our way as planned. So where do you find your...
My husband is very great about letting me bend his ear about certain things, and my mom is too. And then I've pre-COVID, I had a group of artists that I would get together with once a month or so, that we'd get together on Sundays and call it art church. And that was always nice to kind of have that creative think tank, but also, it's nice to have other artists to commiserate with and to bounce different ideas off of, as far as like technique and medium and that sort of thing. So yeah, I would say that.
In what town do you live?
I live not far from Springfield, Illinois.
Okay.
So I live, in the middle of some cornfields, but I'm lucky because, surprisingly, there are quite a few really fabulous artists that don't live that far from me, as it turns out. So yeah, they're wonderful.
You're a really good painter, technically. We discussed your subject, but let's talk about the technique of oil painting. How did you learn it? Did you learn it in being in school, or you learned it on your own? Like, what was the experience like?
I guess a little bit of both, on my own and at school. Mostly because, when I was at school in my art classes, my teachers would just say, well, just have at it, do what you want. I wouldn't say that there was a lot of,
Instruction.
well, instruction in the sense that it was like, you should be using this and you should be using, this medium or these brushes. And I mean, one of my instructors was really great about making suggestions, or, at the beginning, like giving us good color combinations to have as a foundation, I guess. But really, for me, a lot of it was just trial and error, but also experimentation, with different colors. And, I used to, whenever I first started, I would play this game with myself where, you'd be driving in the car and you'd look at something, and or a tree or a billboard or a building, and you would be like, okay, this is, burnt umber and ultramarine blue deep and a little bit of white, like looking at things and coming up with color combinations that would make the colors of the things that you were seeing outside. So yeah, I would say there was definitely an instructional element, I guess, but more so it was just trial and error and experimenting on my own.
You're very talented to get it to this point.
I don't know. I think I'm maybe talented, but also just a little bit of luck.
No, I don't think so. What's your biggest challenge painting from the pictures? Obviously, it's not the same as painting from a live model. For most of us, it's not possible because it takes many days and sometimes weeks to finish something. I mean, I'm assuming you're painting from pictures.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your biggest challenge creating art from pictures?
Well, there is a certain flatness and a certain, you do lose some like gradient of color whenever you don't do it from life. But I think that, I've been doing it long enough now, and I have painted and drawn from life that you can make certain assumptions in what you have, what you have on the computer screen or in the picture, from your experiences working from life. So that makes it a little easier. And then, the other part of that is too, like, you learn to take really good pictures, and you learn to take a bunch of pictures to kind of help round out that image. So there's that too.
Let's talk about the business of art just a little bit. I know that many artists would like to learn about this part of our life. Can you describe your relationship with galleries?
All of the galleries I've worked with have been wonderful. I would say, as far as, from an artist perspective, the thing that I think is most important is having great images of your work. And before you approach galleries, do your research, see who they represent, if your work aligns with their stable of artists, and also if they're what their requirements are for submitting to their gallery, following them on Instagram, and maybe creating a dialogue with them. That their galleries get flooded with
right, submissions
and that sort of thing. So I think just being knowledgeable about the galleries that you're approaching and making sure that your art fits. And the other part of that is also like, if you don't get a response, or you don't get the response that you want, while it's hard to take that
not personally.
Not personally, yeah. You just have to find a way to not take that personally.
How many galleries did you approach before you got your gallery representation? Or how was it like for you? Maybe the gallery contacted you first.
Yeah, I lucked out because I had a piece. Well, the Feeling of Falling, this first piece that I did, I had it in a biennial exhibit in Rockford, Illinois. And it happened that a collector, someone who collects, who hadn't collected my work, saw the piece and was moved by it. And because of that, contacted a gallery, Arcadia Contemporary, about my work. And then the gallery contacted me. So I was really lucky in that respect, that I had some guy that I didn't, initially know, contact a gallery on my behalf. Now, that said, I've also submitted my work to other galleries that I thought that my work would really align with what their idea was, and either didn't hear back from them, or was told, well, not at this time, and that's fine. I mean, I can say that I didn't take it personally, but I'm human. We do. You just find a way to get over that, and I think part of being an artist is developing a thick skin, in a way, dealing with rejection, but also putting yourself out there, putting your ideas out there, and really, like, you're exposing a part of your soul, I guess, and realizing that it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
Do you think that this relationship between the artist and the gallery would improve or actually become worse over time? Because what happens is that there are tons of artists who try to get into very few galleries. And obviously galleries cannot accept everyone. Then it's just a matter of luck, or being liked by the gallery owner to get into the gallery. Do you think this would change over time, or there will be even more competition to get into the gallery space? And do you think if it's important at all? Because what I find is that I can sell my art without having a physical location. So what do you think about all of this?
The thing is, like, Instagram and Facebook and all these social media sites make it a lot easier for artists just to sell their work on their own, right? And so
and keep 50%.
I think, yeah, right. But at the same time, they don't necessarily have access to the collector base that galleries have. The relationship that artists have with galleries is a very fluid thing, and it's changing really quickly, just because the way people view art is changing really quickly. And especially now, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We don't get to have openings the way we used to, at least, for the last year or so. Artists and galleries both have really had to change the way they market their art. kind of in service of what has happened. You can say that there's probably going to be more competition just because there are lots of artists out there, and they have access to social media, and you can market your own art. And so, I really don't know. I don't know. I would say that if you can sell your work by yourself, that's awesome, and not have to be able to do it all by yourself. That's great. But I will say that there are also definite benefits to working with a gallery.
They have their own collector.
They have their own collectors, but then they also, they're smart about marketing and showing work, and they know who to contact. And even just, having your work in a physical space where you don't have to worry about shipping to collectors, and they take care of all of that. And so yeah, there are benefits to both. I mean, I guess it's just weighing what works for you and what you have access to also.
What do you think of the art scene today? Do you think realism is going to be here for good? For a long time, like, there was just abstract art, and now contemporary art scene becomes more fun because realist artists get noticed again. So what do you think is gonna happen in a decade or two? Do you think maybe realists are going to stay here or disappear once again?
I don't know that they're going to disappear. I think maybe, that realists have always been here. It's just whether they're considered, if there's a certain popularity to it, I guess. So it's always going to be around. I mean, you always hear like, oh, painting is dead and blah, blah, blah. And it isn't. I mean, it's just what the ebb and flow, I guess, of art. Everything comes full circle, I suppose. So I think that there will always be a desire to view realist work and hyper realist work. And so I it's just finding the people who like it, I guess.
Do you think there will be more art collectors looking for this kind of work, or
I don't know. I don't really do a deep dive into like collecting trends, but I hope so. I hope that there are more art collectors who like that kind of work and want to purchase it.
Because if you look at art history, there was fantastic Greco-Roman art, and then it disappeared in the medieval times. And then, so it looks like we go in waves, getting everything perfect, the human figure, the perspective, and then denying and rejecting all of that in favor of something else. And it goes in waves.
From my perspective, it's like, I think, well, I know what resonates with me, and I know how I like to paint, and how I like to paint isn't going to change based on what, I guess, the market demand is, or what collectors find appealing. So I just, very much just like a horse with blinders. Like, I just keep on doing what I'm doing and what I like, what resonates with me, and hope that, I find collectors, or people, not even collectors, people who even just like to view the paintings, and it resonates with them.
Anything else you'd like to share?
I can't think of anything, but I was really looking forward to this, and I'm so glad. We've conversed on social media and emails and that sort of thing. So it's nice to kind of have like as real a conversation as we can have face to face. So that was kind of nice.
Well, it's been a lot of fun, Amanda. I'm very happy you decided to participate, and I thank you very much.
Oh, well, hey, thank you very much for reaching out to me. As nervous as I get about this stuff, it is always nice to talk to a fellow artist and art appreciator, So I do enjoy that part.
Thanks so much.
All right. Talk to you later. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below, and all the links are in the show notes. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.